No, I gotta get you back.
Okay, we're on, guys.
Actually.
Meeting's back in order,
All right, let's
and
go.
right now we're going to go to the work session portion of our
Let's
meeting.
go.
And I do have an announcement. Council conducted an executive session for personnel litigation reasons on before tonight's reorganization meeting at 6:30 PM until 7 PM. Council legislative action, if any, shall be taken at the January 12th, 2016 council meeting. Council, if you'll take a look at the budget hearing of November 12th, 2015, the Citizens Night meeting of December 3rd, 2015, and the council work session of December 3rd, 2015. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, and before we move on, our regular council meeting of December 8th, 2015 will be in your packets by Friday for your review over the weekend, and we can address that issue on Tuesday. Moving over to our reports of our tax collection, any additions or corrections? Seeing none, we'll move over to the payroll report. Any additions or corrections on our payroll? Moving over to the list of bills and budget transfers, we'll start off with you, Nick. Any additions or corrections?
No questions this evening, Mayor.
Ron?
Nothing.
Nothing, sir.
Paul?
No, sir.
Steve?
I have nothing.
And Tom?
Nothing.
Very good, and we'll move over to our consent agenda, new business. Tim, if you would.
Okay, the first item under new business is the Guardian Storage Solutions. Applicant is requesting a site plan approval to construct a 45,000 square foot addition to the existing 30,000 square foot structure in a new 42,200 square foot structure and associated site amenities for a personal storage facility. The property is located at 4711 William Penn Highway in the C2 Business Commercial Zoning District. For the benefit of the public, this is where the old furniture store, DFO, is it what's called? Designer Furniture is where it is located currently.
Paul, if you'll just give us a brief description for council's
Absolutely.
FYI.
As Tim has explained, this is the former, outlined in pink is the former DFO building, which is across the street from the Spitzer Toyota, Route 22, closest to me. The applicant is looking to put an addition highlighted in blue onto the back of the existing building and constructing a new building on this side of the property. They did approach or did get variances granted from the zoning hearing board for parking and setbacks. And outside of that, they're complying with all the other rules and regulations.
They have agreed to all that?
Yes.
Am I correct?
That's correct.
Questions or council?
Personally, I think it's great. That building's been sitting empty for quite a while.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you said zoning hearing board, we're good, right?
Yes.
It went-
sorry?
Went through zoning hearing board.
Yes,
We're all
everything was
good.
approved with the zoning hearing board. On Tuesday, I'll bring the rendering. It's going to look much different than it does today.
Thank you.
No questions or comments, council? Thank you, Paul.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, go over to motions, and Tim.
Okay, we have one motion for next Tuesday. This motion to advertise an ordinance for landlord registration and licensing, this motion was tabled at the December council meeting. I don't know what the pleasure of council is here.
I recommend we table it again, Mr. Mayor. We need to sit down, and there are some ordinances in place today, and we'd like to massage the two ordinances together and come up with a final.
I also have a comment. Apparently, this issue is in the city of Pittsburgh, where they're being sued for
Well, the
this.
city has passed that ordinance.
I understand
Right,
that, but
right.
am I not correct in saying there's some issues?
Not only are
with
they
it?
getting sued, the
Right,
Penn Hills has it, and they've just been given notice of
right.
suit.
Pitcairn has it.
Wouldn't it be prudent
Jeanette has
to, wouldn't it be prudent to wait and see how they turn out?
I think we follow Tom, and
Yeah.
let's go down that road, and we can certainly meet and talk about it, but until those cases get resolved, I think you should hold off.
Thank you.
Smart.
Very good.
But that doesn't mean you can't meet and discuss and try to come up with a draft.
Okay, then we'll leave this on the agenda because a motion for tabling it will be needed for next Tuesday.
I think next week what it should be, Tim, is a motion to take it off the agenda
Yes.
pending
Okay.
meeting and discussing
Correct.
with council.
Motion to take it off the agenda
Yes, next week.
Next week,
Okay, next week.
or next week?
All right.
at the next meeting.
Oh, you don't want to,
That's our voting meeting.
No,
Wait, a
that,
voting
on our
meeting.
voting meeting on the 12th, Tom.
thank you, thank you.
Okay,
But I have all
and
this
we'll go
stuff.
over the resolutions.
Okay, we have two resolutions for next Tuesday's council meeting. The first one is a resolution approving the designation of roads for placement of wireless communication facilities. This is in conjunction with the ordinance that you passed last month that was worked on by Cohen Law Group with respect to the small communication towers that are popping up, more so in the eastern part of the state. However, there are certain communities in western Pennsylvania that are seeing them also, because everybody is texting. It's a data-driven tower. They're almost as tall, they're about as tall as telephone poles, about 30, 40 feet. And we don't have any regulations, and those regulations were passed at the December meeting, but this resolution here was accompanying it in the locations of where they could be placed, because you can't exclude them where they could be placed. And you'll notice, if you look at the resolution, all of them are in commercial areas and not in residential areas.
Council, I would request that you ask Tim to place the places where they're going to be posted or could be posted online for residents to review. I think that would be appropriate, so.
Absolutely.
Council, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah, but
If you'll get-
Mayor, I have some questions first.
Sure.
We mentioned about, some of them are commercial areas, but actually, I mean, number 3 and number 4 on the list is Haymaker Road and Saunders Station, and those are both in the 2nd Ward, which I represent. And we could probably go down the list for some of these other roads, but certainly I'm most familiar with Haymaker and Saunders Station, and these certainly are residential areas. People forget that as they're driving down these roads, but if you look left and right, there are homes and people live right there along the road, and so I would argue that these are residential areas. So I'm curious what is permitted by this ordinance. That's a question for Mr. Hugus, I guess, along Haymaker and Saunders Station specifically, and these other roads.
I was not part of development of this.
Well,
resolution.
to answer your question, I think I'm not going to, Natasha Horton, who's the attorney that worked out of Cohen Law Group that put this together. Let me make a suggestion for council. I'm sure Ms. Horton would appear next Tuesday, because I can speculate on her reasoning for placing them in, for instance, you're talking about Haymaker Road and Saunders Station, and I can appreciate that, because, yeah, that is residential there. I can appreciate that very much. Why don't I have her appear here next Tuesday, and we can open that up for discussion with council and anybody from the public.
Would that be permissible with council?
Currently, the way,
Yeah,
what we passed
have to,
last
though.
month doesn't permit them in these areas. So this is actually, we're kind of overlaying this on our last month's ordinance.
Correct.
To actually permit it here. So if we do nothing, they're not permitted in these areas. I understand we have to allow them somewhere, but I think council should, and the president should be aware specifically where these towers
Yeah.
can,
And how many?
and how many,
How
and
many are going to be allowed on?
what are the setbacks,
Station?
and
Yeah.
Maybe it'd be easier, I could probably have a map prepared that shows these streets on them.
Exactly.
Well, I've noticed another, mine also, James Street, which is a residential area, existing infrastructure. What's existing infrastructure?
I'm going to make an assumption here, Steve, it's anything with above-ground utilities. Because if you go over to Ramsey Road, you have some above ground and some underground.
Well, Monroeville Boulevard, they're
So they would
above.
attach it to a pole.
Exactly.
So they're above, Monroeville Boulevard's above,
So
but there's no
James
existing.
Street would probably all above-ground utilities on James Street.
that they could probably go on what's already there. They
An
can go on top.
existing
They just can't
pole, okay.
erect a new tower or pole.
I think it would also be prudent to outline how many can be put on these roads.
Ron, you have a comment as well.
I was going to say, when they had some representatives here before,
Yeah.
Mr. Dice, I could be wrong, but didn't they say that a lot of this is out of our hands at the FCC regulations?
That's correct, but I think you should hear it from her, but you're right, Ron. And just to go along, I've answered that, right?
Yeah, I think,
I
yeah,
think you have to hear it from her, and I think Paul should do the map,
Yes.
so you have it. Does everybody agree with that?
yes.
And that'll be good for the public
Is the
also.
map outlining specific where they're going to be?
No, the map would show you the roads that are
Just how?
indicated on the resolution.
Mr. Hugus,
Yes, sir.
the towers themselves, do we currently in our zoning ordinances, are there setbacks as far as how far they can be from the next residential building, or?
You mean the new ordinance or the pre-existing tower ordinance?
Whatever the law of the municipality is currently, is there anything that states, okay, a tower can go here, but it has to be, I don't know, 100 feet from a house or 500 feet? Is there anything outlining?
The new ordinance does address that, and I don't know what the exact answer is.
Okay, and we have that, we'll have to review it and double
We
check.
can get
That's
that on
part.
Tuesday, that information.
Yeah.
Everybody's okay with Ms. Horton being here then, correct?
That'd be great.
Yes.
Okay.
Tim, if you would, the next resolution.
Okay, the next resolution is for a grant. It's a resolution authorizing a multimodal transportation fund grant application to the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for emergency vehicle preemption modernization project. This is a grant for the little strobe light that goes off when you have emergency vehicles going through intersections, and it freezes all the lights to red. It's a grant to
Turns them
replace
green in
those.
our favor.
And, okay, it turns them green in the emergency vehicles' favor.
If you remember, Council, we did talk about this in past, so hopefully we,
Does this grant cover the completion of the program?
Tom, I was involved with it. Matter of fact, Dom LaGorga is the one that brought it to my attention because he was having such trouble repairing the current ones because they're so old, they don't even make the parts anymore. So he was having a difficult time keeping all the intersections operating, and he had met with a couple companies, and this one doesn't require the signal to see the emergency vehicle because it's transmitted over over 800 frequency and over cell phone. So right now, the current intersection has to see that vehicle coming before it changes.
Right.
As you can imagine, many times we approach intersections, and that because of the traffic backed up, we can't get close enough to trigger the light. And this would correct that, for one.
Right.
Two, this grant covers not only all 32 or 33 lights that Dawn told me about, but it also covers putting the unit in all the emergency vehicles counting the police cars. The other thing that we decided, if we got this grant, and we implemented this because we have so many emergency vehicles coming through Monroeville because of the two hospitals, that we would announce it to the other communities that we're switching over to this and leave the old ones operating for 2 to 3 months, giving them chance to get the new
Right.
transmitters.
Right.
So the chunk of this that we have to pay for, there was 2 grants to go for, and this one was the one that Paul and Jamie Story felt we had a better chance at.
Right. Will this cover the completion of the program?
Yes, plus our percentage.
Well, okay, that's what I want to know. What's it going to cost the municipality? What's the difference?
I don't know the.
I have the answer if you need it. Okay. The municipality has a 30% match. So
Okay.
it is,
Be
it's $549,480.
$150,000.
So the municipality's match is $164,844.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Thanks.
Specifically?
any other, go ahead, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Little. Mr. Dice, ordinances.
Yes, the first ordinance is to create an ad hoc board to study the home rule charter.
Questions or comments? Nick, would you like to say anything since this is your?
Yeah, I mean, I'll repeat what I've been repeating here. The Home Rule Charter, it hasn't been reviewed in, are we at,
Since 1987.
thank you, 1987, which is quite a long time, and what council was looking to do, and what other communities do that have Home Rule Charters, that they form committees to, members of the community to evaluate and go through the Home Rule Charter, see if anything needs to be updated. Mount Lebanon did it recently, and this is a advisory committee, so what they do is they meet, they go through things, and then they present it to council. Council, takes that and moves on with it in official capacity, and then from there, any changes has to go on a vote or referendum. So it's like a 3-step process, and the hope is we would get some residents that were interested to sign up for this committee and make the recommendations to council prior to the end of this year. So if council does choose to make any kind of moves for a referendum, we could do it for the 2017 primary election for any changes. So, long story short, any resident that is interested, please contact Mr. Little or your council person or the mayor and throw your name in the ring, and hopefully we can get this ad hoc board.
I'm sorry, Nick,
Bill.
how many members?
5, 7, or 9.
Oh, okay.
The reason we always want to keep an odd number to break any kind of tie that there is. And the reason for 5, 7, and 9, the range I gave was just to, I think 3 was too little and 11 was too much. So, 5, 7, 9, I think that would be good for each, for the committee. And also, I didn't want to kind of stay with like 7, so then it wouldn't be that it has to be all, one from each ward. So 5, 7, 9.
Very good.
Any other questions or comments on this ordinance? Mr. Dice, if you would.
Yes, the next ordinance establishing a policy regarding opening invocation before meetings at Monroeville Council. I believe we've talked about this at length.
And we
Next
have
order.
3 options. Is that correct?
Yes.
3 options.
Yeah. You want to?
No, I know the options, I was just,
All right. The next ordinance is an ordinance amending ordinance number 848 regarding traffic, parking, and impounding of vehicles specifically for the placement of stop signs.
Do you want to maybe go into a little detail on that?
I would,
Paul?
that was me that asked to look into that for residents, some streets in my neighborhood that are missing stop signs that should be there. And I asked Mr. Hugus to look into it, and I would rather he explain it because I don't know the answer.
It'd be establishing a stop sign on Point Circle Drive at the intersection of Jerry Lane.
Okay,
Is
Mr.
that-
Dice. Oh,
And
I'm
that's
sorry.
something we can easily do as a municipality?
Yes.
Since there are roads, we can put a stop sign wherever we want?
It's
Yeah, I
good
mean,
that
there's
this-
regulations you have to follow to establish a stop sign.
Within reason.
Yes.
I've had several people ask me to put a stop sign there
Okay.
because there's none there.
Okay, we're still in the meeting.
I'm
here.
sorry.
Okay. Why don't you yell at them afterwards?
Okay.
Drive too fast.
All right. Lastly is an amendment, an amendment to ordinance number 2613, appointing Tim Little as manager of the municipality of Monroeville and establishing compensation and benefits of the municipal manager pursuant to section 701 of the Monroeville Home Rule Charter.
Once again, council, no comments. I appreciate that.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Dice. We'll go reports of our municipal staff. Bruce, any other words of wisdom for us?
Not tonight.
Not tonight, all righty. Tim, if you would.
Yeah, I have 3 items under the municipal staff report. Mr. Lally, our CFO, we've received again this year the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report Award. That it's the highest level of financial reporting from the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association from Chicago. We received, and you have a copy of the letter in your packet. Congratulations to you on that, Sean, and a good job on that.
Sean.
A lot of detail goes into that. If anybody has ever looked at the CAFR, it's online. If you're having trouble sleeping at night, just pull it up and read. You'll be
Lord.
asleep in 5 minutes, okay? Okay, the second item is somewhat more important, not more important than the CAFR, but business district analysis. We've received a letter from the Turtle Creek Valley COG that the Tri-COG, which the Tri-COG is the Still Valley COG, the Twin Rivers COG, and in our COG, the Turtle Creek Valley COG, is that they have a grant from the Benedum Foundation that they are going to hire a consultant to do, for 10 municipalities, to do a study, an economic analysis of a business district in your municipality. And this is for any of the 40 municipalities in any of those Tri-COGs. And I just want council to be aware of this because I'm going to be putting in for this. In fact, I got a call today from the assistant manager from Plum Borough that would like to go in together and quite possibly maybe do something on Route 286 to study it. And I was thinking about maybe looking at some areas on Route 22. But I'm bringing this up if council has any comments tonight, or if they think of anything, email me, that if you'd like to see any specific location analyzed with respect to economic development, with respect to putting in a TIF, alerta. Alerta basically, to make a long story short, is like a tax abatement to get some economic development in there. Email me your comments, council, or if you want to mention something now and discuss it now, fine. Any comments?
Tim, if you would.
Okay. All right, number 3 is on an ordinance that was passed in 2005 when the new community park was built. And this is donations for naming rights to different facilities that are up at just the community park. We have an ordinance that is later than that, that prohibits any kind of naming or signage in any of our community parks other than the community park, the newer park, which is only 10 years old. And the reason for that is, I guess previous councils did not want a lot of signage to litter up the parks, and they passed that ordinance, I think it was back in the 80s, maybe even in the 70s. But they made an exception for it when the new community park was built in order to seek naming rights, in order to get donations. Now, that ordinance, which is ordinance number 2338, which was passed in July of 2005, gave the Monroeville Foundation the ability to collect that money because it was a donation, something like we're doing with the animal shelter now. Now, the reason I bring this to council's attention is that we have a person or a family that they have asked the Monroeville Foundation years past that they want to have one of the pavilions named after, I don't know if it was one of their grandmothers or whoever it was, and they're willing to donate the money, but we have on the attached sheet, which when this was passed, $25,000 for the naming rights to a large picnic pavilion. However, they do not want to pay that much. They have $5,000 that they will donate through the Monroeville Foundation, which, according to the ordinance, would go towards the different amenities to the community park. So I mentioned this briefly to Mr. Dice last month, and obviously the ordinance would have to be amended if the Monroeville Foundation was going to do that. What I'm looking for, and I've put in hand, and I wrote in hand, changing the different donations on the sheet attached. And if council can look at that, and if they want to make any comments now, or if you want to email me, or if you want to discuss it further tonight, or even next week at the council meeting. But that's the reason why I bring this up for discussion with council this evening, because what I'd be seeking next week, if council would be okay with this, I'd be seeking an authorization to advertise the amendment for this that would be passed in February, and then a donation could be sought, and we could approach the family that would want to make this donation. Now, any kind of signage that would be done would according to this ordinance, as council can read it, would have to be approved by council. They couldn't just put anything up signifying that this pavilion is the so-and-so Smith, for instance, pavilion. The signage would have to be approved by council. Okay? Any comments on that?
Well, I just have one that I would like to see where you have the changes in your handwriting, put that on our website for the folks to see what it was and what you're recommending, et cetera. And I certainly have council please review and, as Tim requested, send your comments. You guys okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a question.
Sure.
I'm assuming that these are all for like a lifetime name, so to
Correct.
speak. It's not like there's a
Right.
window, like some naming rights are.
And I will be at the Park and Rec meeting next Monday.
Okay.
Bringing this up at the Park and Rec meeting.
And also, do we know the figures that are here, are they similar to maybe what other communities have done? I know Cranberry has done some naming up there, and
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anything is in parallel that is pretty close. I can't answer that.
okay. And then lastly, so the money would go to the Monroeville Foundation, but would that money all be directed to the community park?
Correct. I mean, that's in accordance with this ordinance.
Okay.
Unless council wanted to change that. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I thought it would benefit all the parks, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, no, I mean, basically, one of the provisions that is in here, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4th whereas on the community park project is in need of additional funds to build Phase 2 of the project to include a recreation community center. Now, I mentioned to the Monroeville Foundation when we had our last meeting, and Ron was there because he's the council liaison, is that we used to have a fund from monies that were left over from when the community park was built from, I think it was from the sale of the sewer authority to the authority, the sewer system to the authority. That money, which was done, I think, what, in 03, 02, and that's really what built the community park. So there was monies left over, and it was a substantial amount of money. How much, I don't know. But that money is all gone. All right, it was used to balance the budget, so there wasn't a tax increase going back 6, 7, 5 years ago. That money is gone. So I think right now, that the thoughts of building a recreational facility at the community park are really not there anymore, unless council wants to correct me on that.
My thought is that by naming each of the pavilions would be easier to identify them for folks that are going to rent them, number one. But I think we need to put a term limitation on these. And, let's
On
see.
the naming.
Yes, I'd say 10 years or something like that, because, you can't let it go indefinitely, because there may be some other folks that somewhere along the line after that family has passed on, maybe some other folks that want to
Council agree
put
with
their
that?
name on there.
Well, I think council should send you an email on that.
Let us look at it.
Yeah, I think you need to put some thought on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I agree with Mr. Wilson. I think $1,000 to name a baseball field for centuries is a pretty good bargain. So maybe something we need to look at as far as time. And I don't know what the proper time frame is. Maybe we need to look at other communities. But I think this is a great idea as far as the naming. I think it's something we should look at long-term with all of our parks, naming playgrounds and some of the amenities without certainly keeping it tasteful, but it's a way
Do we
to
have
generate
many people
revenue.
standing in line to name these facilities?
No, hence the reason for lowering.
Okay, good.
The amount for the donation. I mean, we haven't
So let's get
had
it-
anybody that said they're going to donate $25,000
Right,
to get a naming right for a
Well,
large
let's get
facility.
that on the street and let them know that these things are available.
I think we're doing that right now, Tom.
I was thinking about naming one after the mayor.
At any rate, though, I heard you were first in line, Tom, that's what I heard. But at any rate, no, all kidding aside, I think also then if council's pleasure, the one caveat in here where it talks about the community center, do you want to keep that in? Again, I want you to think about that as well. Is that what this fund's for? Or are we going to just share it with all the parks as suggested that we can upgrade some of the facilities around?
Yeah, should go into.
Because we do have 19 parks as well as the communities.
Again, let us take a look at it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's look at it.
Okay.
All righty.
All right, Paul, any other comments?
No comments, Mayor.
And how about you, Sean?
Thank you.
Very good, and we'll move over to our reports of our council members. Tom, you're up and back.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Steve,
Thank you.
JJ,
Thank you.
and Dr. Gresshock. It's been a pleasure working with you for the last 2 years, and I'm looking forward for at least my next 2 years. And just thanks for your support and everything that you've done for this community. Thank you. I'd like to remind everybody tonight about the Pittsburgh firefighters that had 7 firefighters injured in Wilkinsburg. This is a good example of how all firefighters and police go to work each day, not knowing what the day will bring for them. They saved an elderly woman at the risk of their own lives. 7 were injured, and all but 1 have been released from the hospital. This effort by the firefighters is a clear demonstration of their skills for saving people from all tragedies. Thank you.
Steve?
In regards to my reelection, I'd like to thank my family and friends for their love and support, and my wife for putting up with me through all this. It was pretty ugly. And the residents of the 6th Ward for their faith and confidence in my reelection to council. And I do want to state that it's a privilege and an honor to serve the residents and the businesses of Monroeville. I mean, we don't take it lightly up here. It's something that we cherish and we try to do our best at. and I'll do my best to keep Monroeville a wonderful place to live and raise a family as I have for the past 36 years. That's all I have, and thank you all.
Paul?
Just wanted to congratulate Steve, JJ, and Nick
Thank you.
for coming back aboard. I'm not sure if that's,
What?
you knew what you were getting into, guys. But no, Steve's right. We do take this very seriously, but you have to joke about it once in a while. I wanted to thank everybody for coming out today, too, and expressing our opinions. Unfortunately, there's only 12 people left. But hopefully you're watching from home. And we'll probably talk about this more on Tuesday. Okay, I'm finished.
You did a head count.
I did.
Wow.
Thank you. Before I get to the Convention Visitors Bureau, which there's a few things going on, and by the way, one of them is not concerning a beanbag getting thrown into a hole. I'd like to say, for anybody that knows me well, 5 years ago, if you'd have told me I'd be sitting up here as a councilman, I'd tell you you're full of shit. And I mean that. Boy, do I mean that. I'm here. The first 2 years out of 4, let me tell you what, it's probably one of the toughest things I ever went through, along with my 2 compadres. Although the second 2, it was a pleasure, and I do mean that. These other guys took all the Band-Aids off that I got beat up along with these other guys for the first 2 years. So I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. And to all those folks out there that supported me during this phase of my life, thank you. Now I'll move on, real quick. Convention Visitors Bureau. Pittsburgh Boat Show is going on the 15th of January through the 17th, excuse me, and also January 22nd through the 24th. The Monroeville Home Show is going on January 29th through the 31st. The Gun Show is February 6th and 7th. The Allegheny Sport and Outdoor Travel Show is Wednesday, February 17th through the 21st. And the Train and Toy Show is November 6th and 7th, and with that, I am done.
I like your purple glasses, by the way.
Thank you.
And
You
people-
switched them real quick.
I did have one question about the Conventions Bureau. How successful was the cornhole tournament?
I'll get that report.
Ron, you're up next, please.
You have to call me after he says that.
You're next.
You.
My congratulations also to Dr. Griesbach, Mr. Johns, and Mr. Duncan. It was very interesting and helpful and time up here as a councilman, as the new councilman, under them, and I look forward to working with them for the remainder of my term, at least for the next 2 years. Congratulations to Nick for being reelected deputy mayor again. I think I just want the residents to know, and might as well, I'm sure council is the same way. The opinion on the ordinance or the right for prayer and invocation at these meetings, I think is probably one of the hardest things we've come and has come in front of us. It's just going to take a lot of thought, and everything being with us, we'll do the right thing. To mirror image Mr. Wilson's thoughts on the prayers to the firefighters who had to jump out of the window of that house in Wilkinsburg, I hope and their families that they are all physically and mentally okay. Congratulations to Sean Lawley. I read the letters that came with his award, and that is very prestigious. I'm happy that he is with us in Monroeville, and congratulations for that award. And that's all.
Nick.
Yes, Mayor. Once again, I want to just thank council for the kind words and the congratulations, and it has been an honor working with all of you, and, we don't always agree, and that's how it's supposed to be, but we're supposed to, work together, and I think we do that pretty well, and I appreciate, the opportunity to do so. Big thanks to certainly the residents of the Second Ward for re-electing me to this position. It is a great honor to represent them in this capacity and represent the community in this capacity, and it's very humbling, and I appreciate their support. A very important thank you to my wife Tara and my daughters Hannah and Allie. It's past their bedtime. Maybe Tara's too, but It's past their bedtime, but yeah, I thank them for all their love and support, not only with this, but in all aspects of my life. I certainly, without them, I am not who I am, so they'll never know how much they mean to me. But a thank you to Reverend Marrow for his invocation for our swearing-in ceremony this evening. It's appreciated. And regarding the prayer, there's definitely a lot of good points made by the community this evening. One of my biggest disappointments with all of this is that this didn't begin as a community discussion. This is certainly one complaint to the ACLU, which now is forcing this. It's unfortunate that maybe the ministerium didn't come up, months ago to say, hey, this is something we've been talking about, maybe you should consider it. It's something that's being forced upon us, and it is what it is. But we're going to look through everything between now and Tuesday and do our best with it. I would agree with a few people. Mr. Brown brought up some points. It is a 6-page document for an ordinance to regulate prayer, which I think is awfully burdensome. But once again, we will discuss this. One thing I would like to just throw out to council to suggest, I know we talk about having a moment of silence. I would maybe pitch to council, maybe to legal, if we could call it a moment of silent prayer or meditation. Therefore, we are, certainly saying you could silently pray or you could silently meditate. One thing we didn't discuss, we talked about the different faiths of the community, which we should embrace, and that's a great thing for this community. We didn't recognize, there are people that don't have faith or choose not to have faith or are agnostics. So we should try to include everyone, but perhaps, like I said, maybe renaming it to a silent prayer or meditation, maybe something we can work with. But once again, it is nice to see community members come out, the ministerium come out. We definitely should embrace our diversity, and it's a great thing. We are, when it boils down to it, we're all neighbors here, and that's what this community is about. That's what every community is about and what it should be about. So we have some work to do between now and Tuesday, and I'm confident that my colleagues up here and Mrs. Gatos will do what's best for the community.
Anything else?
Yes, sir. Just one announcement for the Second Ward at Crossroads Presbyterian Church. This Friday, January 8th at 7 p.m. is Rook Chapel Ringers. It's their hometown tour. Reverend Marrow, if you could just elaborate for me briefly.
It's the Rook Chapel Ringers are from Bucknell University.
No, you have to come up to the mic.
I was going to repeat what he said. I was getting the Reader's Digest version, but I'll make him work some more this evening. I appreciate it.
The Rook Chapel Ringers are from Bucknell University. You may have seen them on PBS and a couple other shows throughout the holiday season. They're on tour. They go to the seniors of the group. And there's 3 locations that they're going to be. One happens to be in Pittsburgh here at Crossroads. This Friday evening, a free concert. Will be a little free will offering to help defray their expenses, not ours. But we're hosting them for a few days, and I hope you can come out and see some. If you like handbells, my goodness, they are fantastic. So thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, no problem. Congratulations to Sean Lally and his staff for their Certificate of Achievement with the CAFR. Great job, as always. And one last thank you, Mr. Macaluso, who spoke earlier, as a World War II veteran. There's a lot of men and women that have served our country in that capacity, and certainly it highlights to me, whenever I think that my day isn't going that well, or or things aren't going so great, it's embarrassing for me to think that whenever you hear of our veterans and what they do and what they have done for our country. So a big thanks to them and to him, and that is all for this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Nick, I just want to say thank you for mentioning the veterans and Mr. Magaluso and all our WW2 guys. They certainly deserve the recognition of being the greatest generation, but I think all our veterans, including the ones today, are all part of that great generation. I just have a couple of quick announcements. This Friday, I'll be attending in North Versailles with Senator Brewster and other mayors and some other elected officials. I'm not sure who's all going to be there, but it has to do with abuse of women, and abuse of children, just that type of issue, which is, most sad to say, very prevalent in our society still. And that leads me to the second point that I want to bring up in regards to that. I'll be starting a new initiative, working with some folks in the community, and we'll be seeking some other volunteers. We're going to try to close and hopefully get Harrisburg to back us, the massage parlors, not just in Monroeville, but throughout the state, because there is abuse of the women there. There's also human trafficking issues, which Doug and some of his staff did, I think it was about a year and a half or so ago. So we're going to be getting into that initiative, and certainly we're going to be looking for some volunteers to assist us in that endeavor. Congratulations, Nick, on being the deputy mayor and in your reelection. Same with you, Jim, as well as you, Steve. Sean, I don't even know what to say. You're a great asset to the community. Thank you for your hard work and your award, and to your staff as well. And last but certainly not least, I hope everybody had a safe holiday season, and I do want to wish everybody a happy and safe New Year's, and with that, I will seek adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and good night, ladies and gentlemen.